So Rob, so today is our inaugural CopperFox soundbite session, and we're going to talk about a little bit about our backgrounds and about CopperFox and what we're trying to achieve and where the need for it is. But let's kick off with a little bit of background about yourself.
Okay, we got together about 9 months ago now to look at what we could do in the gig economy, particularly around the commercial support, the CFO support, and what came out of that was we thought that there was a gap in that market, that it hasn't been serviced all that well, and so we joined forces with the aim of growing this business across New Zealand. My background obviously is as an accountant, as an experienced CFO. I've gained that experience both here in New Zealand in the last 10 or 12 years, but also spent 17 years in the UK. Probably the last 10 of those years was in the banking sector. Say probably the last 5 to 7 years I've been working as a contract CFO for a number of medium-sized organisations, and decided fairly recently that I wanted to grow the business, but I knew I couldn't do it on my own.
There's some similarities there, really. I guess sort of the first 20 odd years of my working life was spent in the corporate sector. I was number 2 in the finance team at OfficeMax, turning over about $300 million a year when I was working for them. And but for the last 10 years, consulting, much the same as you have, with a private client base, providing commercial CFO advisory type guidance, running projects, some of them quite significant. You're aware of my background with in the outsourced CFO area, having established an organisation about 10 years ago that provided that service. But yeah, like you, I sort of see there being a need with particularly in that sort of that mid-size, that mid-cap New Zealand sector, where there are aspirational business owners really crying out for help and needing support. So it was really timely that we did reconnect with a view to building something that was bigger than both of us. And again, with the competencies that we have with Santosh and Vlad around digitalisation and big data, which is a skill set which is universally in demand. So yeah, it's a very exciting time.
Okay, Tony, so just talking a little bit more about CopperFox's service offering to businesses out there. In the past, we've both had businesses that have had quite a narrow service offering around that commercial support, CFO, contract CFO type of role. Can you explain a little bit about the broader service offering that CopperFox now offers?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rob. Well, it's a broader and a deeper offering. So the organisation is larger than just a service, and obviously we've got Vlad and Santosh as part of the team as well. But our broader network is a lot larger than that. So it does sort of provide a more flexible service offering. So yes, we've got, as you know, 6 pillars to our business offering. The first is the commercial, what we call commercial support review, which is really applying a commercial lens to what's happening in the business. So typically it's a review of performance on a monthly basis. It doesn't have to be, but generally it is that. So looking at the operating performance, looking at the balance sheet components, assessing liquidity and the ability to ensure that the appropriate funding and resourcing is in place, and basically just, as I say, applying a sort of another set of business eyes across what has been in order to support the business on where it wants to go. So that's the commercial support offering. The second is around our project delivery arm. So essentially, what we're doing here is putting a ring fence around a business improvement opportunity and the appropriate governance required to deliver that. So we distinguish business as usual or core from the project. The project's got a defined beginning and end. As I say, there's normally some sort of governance oversight, and it's around delivering something tangible that has enduring shareholder value. And obviously, depending on the magnitude of the project, the timeline, the financial commitment, the risk associated with it, the riskier, longer term, more expensive projects have to have a more formalised structure in place. Where that's not the case, it could be quite informal. So it's about putting together the appropriate environment to ensure that things are delivered the right way. And of course, underpinning this is the business case, which is quite important, and that's where we sort of document before commencing any work. The value that is expected to be derived from the project, the costs, the benefits, the timeline, and the resourcing.
And examples of what type of projects that would be?
Yeah, so it could be anything from taking an existing product or service into a new market, implementing a new customer initiative, putting a new computer framework in place. It could be anything, but it's a step change from business as usual. Therefore, it needs to be appropriately managed. The third is around what we call big data and analytics. So there's a sort of general recognition that the sort of conventional chart of accounts reporting that organisations have is at enterprise level, and it's normally prepared in arrears, monthly in arrears, quite often. So for a lot of organisations, it's neither at a detailed enough level or on a timely, real-time basis. So big data analytics is around putting together views. So for example, customer buying behaviours at like a very detailed level, and identifying trends in that data and elevating it up into a dashboard so that it has meaning for the organisation. So it's a more timely, a more detailed view, and it has value to the business in terms of being able to act on that.
Yeah, well, the second three for a start would be digital transformation, and its focus is really on how to improve the customer experience for any business, and that's looking at how they present their services or products to that customer, and there are touch points all along the way, and how can they improve that so that the customer experience is more enhanced, and therefore they are creating, developing that customer loyalty, which is really important to any business.
Of course.
And a lot of that is around technology, but it's also just looking at all elements of the business and how can they operate smarter and more efficiently. So sometimes it's about systemizing processes. Otherwise it's replacing people-centric or labour-centric tasks and functions with automation. But it can be piecemeal. It doesn't have to be a total transformation of the organisation. We employ an agile methodology, so it's all about incremental improvement, but all the way along that process there's a positive return on investment that is generated from that initiative.
Yeah, I think that's a really big point, because a lot of organisations look at the digital journey and they look at where they're at the moment, and they look at where they're having to go to, and they think the whole thing has to be done in one piece, and it is a journey. So it is a piecemeal approach, but the important thing is to ensure that everything is synchronistic, so that the decisions that are made along the way always support that outcome, so so that we're not making short-term decisions just around a specific area, but ensuring that the whole end-to-end solution is aligned.
Absolutely.
And also, as you say, around return on investment, there is a way to sort of ensure that the payback is there for the investment in the digital journey.
Yep. So then the next pillar we've got is around advisory boards. We help organisations set up advisory boards, and this is generally in situations where they identify that they've got a gap in their knowledge base or their skill set. They don't necessarily want to bring that in full time. So an advisory board is just that. That provides an organisation with that experience and expertise that can give recommendations. They're not telling the organisation or the senior management team what to do, they're just suggesting that this is a good thing to do. And so they're definitely performance based. It's about making a significant difference to an organisation. We go through a very structured approach when we're looking at taking on an organisation and helping them set up an advisory board. First of all, we've got to identify whether or not they actually need one, and then what does that advisory board look like, and that'll be different for any organisation. But there, like I say, there's a structured approach to this. We look at where they're at now, where they need to be in terms of the trends in their market, and then what initiatives they need to initiate for them to get from where they are now to where they want to be, which is usually a significant step forward in terms of growth, profitability, efficiency, and their stature within the market.
So sort of essentially it's complementing the existing executive team by adding to the intellectual grunt of that team, providing a structured framework for achieving outcomes, but it's not the actual doing piece. It's probably important to say that. It's around providing sort of the commercial governance around ensuring that those outcomes are achieved, but working with the organisation to ensure they've got the right people on board.
Yeah, and back to our philosophy around sort of evidence-based decision making. It's making sure that organisations are making commercially intelligent decisions about their future. So it is looking at how they're performing at the moment, but it is also looking outside of the business and into the sector that they operate, or even associated sectors, and going, where do they need to be positioned, and then what do they need to do to get to that place. Yeah. So that's quite an interesting piece of work and support that we offer businesses. And then the final area is around executive mentoring, and particularly in the current environment where there's a scarcity of workforce or skilled labour in the New Zealand market anyway, partly because of COVID and the restrictions of people coming into the country. But also, there are organisations that are still growing and still looking for a certain skill and experience, and that's just not necessarily readily available. So it's really important for organisations at the moment, and obviously there's a low unemployment rate, is to look after what they've got. And one way of doing that and getting more out of that resource is to upskill them, both in management skills, business skills, and knowledge, and particularly those where they see them with potential to develop themselves in a career path. Then it's in a business's interest to hold on to them and get the benefits of that extra capacity that they can etch out of those individuals.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when there's three elements to that mentoring, there is the technical knowledge, and within our network of people, we've got that really covered in terms of the business support function. So there's that technical aspect. The second is around management, so the day-to-day, learning how to be an effective manager in terms of prioritising your own time, but also those are the people that you're working with to ensure that that the job's done in the most efficient way, and balancing that leadership role with the sort of the personal delivery that you do as a senior person. And the third aspect is around the leadership skills, which is understanding what the end game is within any sort of function or any role, and ensuring that the business is that the people working under the mentee understand what that path is, and that they're taking on that journey. So it's around developing a sort of a sense of belonging and getting the buy-in from the team for the area that manager is responsible for, but also ensuring that it's aligned with achieving the right strategic outcomes for the business. Yeah. It's probably fair to point out at this sort of point too, Rob, is that any one of these 6 streams of business can be taken on from a client's point of view, but there's value in using more than one, and some of these are quite complementary. So, for example, the advisory board and the commercial support function, where you've got the rigour of the advisory board, but drawing the resource in from ourselves and from other places to actually deliver the right outcomes. So, we sort of say somewhere in our website that 1 + 1 = 3. So the value of using more than one of these service pillars creates additional value to the organisation. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I agree with that, and it comes back to our tagline, which is commercial intelligence for better business. That is about coming into or going into an organisation and helping them understand better what's actually happening in their business, what's actually happening in their industry. What are the pressure points that are happening around in the economy that possibly will impact them on a positive or a negative basis. So we've got our commercial support function that relies quite a lot on big data to provide really, really top class service and information and advice. So that's just one area. But yeah, the advisory board and commercial support, the ability for us to go in and improve the quality and skill set of people within the organisation, they're all interrelated. They're all designed to make businesses better at what they do.
And I mean, a sort of an underpinning part of how we operate, and this comes down to our value framework is sort of essentially around providing a tailored solution that achieves the best outcome for our clients in the most efficient way at the lowest cost and the shortest timeline. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, we don't have a one size fits all solution to businesses. We never thought that was ever going to work. So our solutions are tailored to each individual business owner that is looking for our type of support. And whether that's a digital transformation solution, whether it's a commercial support, whether it's establishing an advisory board, it really it doesn't matter to us as long as what we can offer is going to be an improvement on that business. Whether that support is an hour a week, whether it's a week-long project, or whether it's a continuous, 1 or 2 days a week. That's totally up to what that gap is within that organisation and what their needs are, and how best we can serve those needs.
Yeah, agreed. So it's about providing something which is fit for purpose for each individual client, for each situation, because no two businesses are alike.
No.
So the same problem in different businesses with different resourcing requires different solutions.
Yep, agreed.